Hey,
Hey, how are you, man?
good. Well, I heard you say this is going to be a short call.
Yeah, actually, I just realized I just jumped off one call, but then I see that there was another one back to back. But like, I'm gonna be, I don't know, there's just too many calls.
Wow, you're a busy guy. Well, good for you. Good for you. I guess you're spinning a few plates, right, with Spec Ledger, and I did want to do a Spec Ledger thing at some
Yeah,
point.
I think it would be cool. So, for example, I did 1 2 hour session with a friend who came up with a cool idea and then he built a little mock-up in V0 with static data. And I asked him like, is there anything you want to build? And then we do a 2 hour session. And if all goes well, by the end of it, you'll have an extra little piece of code on top of it that works. Basically, and you understand a little bit more the spec-driven development approach.
Yeah, I'm keen to do that. Like, the thing that bothers me, I've got real FOMO around that whole like. You hear developers who say that like, "Oh, yeah, I got some agents going overnight, and while I go to the gym that the agents are running. When I'm
Yeah.
using when I'm using an agent, it's just like, I ask it a couple of things and then it stops. Have you managed to like run the spec ledger overnight and you come up with and in the morning there's a
So
there's a fresh new implementation?
months ago, they had this like gas town, spice must flow, these Dune references with like the ideas of keeping agents in a loop if they stop until the task is complete. Even lately, auto research is going berserk everywhere about people like you give it some constraints, some experiments to run, and it iterates against those goals. And overnight, you get like, I don't know, 45, 50 experiments. I'm just making
Hmm.
up numbers
What
here.
is what is auto research? Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Auto research is from that ex OpenAI guy and that the guy who coined the term vibe coding. I am afraid to
Oh,
mispronounce his name, Karpathy or
Andre
something.
Karpathy.
Yeah. So he released auto research and he said like he does a lot of LLM fine tuning manually and finds optimizations based on how he understands the algorithms. And he basically formalized the process and now he has LLM agents executing this. And he says he already had a highly manually optimized stack and the AI found a lot of improvements overnight. They talk about numbers. I don't remember them, like
Yeah, this is
30% improvement.
this is the workflow I feel like I'm missing. I mean, do you do that sort of stuff with spec ledger? Get the agent working all the time, or
I mean, if we continue a little bit about auto research, it's very interesting because people are taking this from fine tuning models to actually building out features as well. And so you see a lot of posts on Reddit and LinkedIn and everywhere from people saying, I took auto research and I made it work on this like product feature. Like, I think there was one famous company, I don't remember the name, but they had manually fine-tuned templates for their template engine. I think it was Shopify. It might have been Ruby. I'm not sure. And they had auto research improve the performance of those templates. So it basically can work on all kinds of like it's a framework. It's a bit like Ralph Wiggum. It's kind of a loop to get that going.
okay, I feel like I need to try this. I mean, you
But in
mentioned this.
terms of your question that you
Yeah.
asked 3 times already, which is have you set up agents to run overnight with Spec Ledger? And I feel like I'm not like
Oh
I
man,
told you
you're
this
just gonna let me
before.
down.
I just told you this before that even if I write the specs and somebody else builds it, it's not up to my expectation. Even last night, I did something really fun. There's like I use a certain SaaS and they have a CLI, but it doesn't expose some of the UI features. You have to go to the web interface to click on this, then go there, and it's very annoying because I have to click a whole bunch of buttons to just see the error message. Plus, it's then beautified, but it doesn't actually give me raw data. And ultimately, I need that data back into the shell to give it back to my agent. So to go and click buttons and then to copy out data, put it in the shell, it's annoying.
Yeah.
So the agent dog Cloud Code really cleverly found a whole bunch of curl endpoints. I think maybe from public API specs. And it does a lot of like, it fetches my credentials from the credential file. It puts it, does a curl with the authorization like bearer token and then it finds the details. But there are so many curls and then sometimes makes mistakes that I just decided, hey, I want to capture all those curls and put them into a CLI, like a Golang CLI. And just to come back to the point, right? I started with first documenting like some markdown so that I could point the agent to it. Here's how we did this particular step. These are the curls you do. This particular step. These are the curls you do. And so I took that doc and I gave it to Spec Ledger, said, write the user stories. right? As an engineer or an AI agent, I need a command line interface to, trigger
Mm,
this particular action and to go fetch the logs and to get the error messages and things like that.
mhm.
So it's not like GitHub Actions something different, because GitHub Actions CLI does this beautifully, right? So anyway, I got Speculator to write the user stories. Then I went one step further because I had like 2 weeks almost of me doing this. So I went and I told it, now you have the user stories, you have this initial thing. Now go through all of my Cloud Code sessions, look for this particular API endpoint, and find any usage scenario where this was being used, and what was the usage, what was the use case, how was it being used, why was it being used,
That's
and
pretty
is it
massive to make it
covered?
look through your Claude sessions, but carry on.
And yeah, I mean, like I said, I am not using the automation enough, and I have way too many tokens right now. So I have like, just go ahead, use as many tokens as you want, because I'm running out. Like I'm hitting the end of the week, and I still have like used only 40% of my tokens. So just like over 2 hours, just go and explore. And it found like three or more usage scenarios where the AI agent was like, yeah, your document talks about these things, but there's a couple of cases where the agent was trying to do this and it didn't work well with the curls. So it added those in. And then ultimately, I had a beautiful spec, right? I had a wonderful spec. This is the CLI. I have my whole design of how I want it. I wrote the plan, and there was just like 40 tasks, which like in the past, I would hit 80 tasks, right? And after 80 tasks, I would say 80 tasks is too much. It will definitely go RE, will not go well. And I included E2E, like it uses Golang, so it uses VCR cassettes to like replay HTTP, because I'm working against an API server, right? So I'm running end to end with like,
VCR cassettes. I've never heard that. I've heard of HTTP test.
yeah, I think it's using like a local HTTP test server, but it's replaying responses from like cassettes, from like on disk snapshots of what the API returns from what it observed in the past. So wonderful, right? 40 tasks, VCR cassettes, end-to-end testing, CLI fully defined. This is perfect. You should go to sleep, right? And you should just let it run. But 40 Claude takes maybe 30 minutes to implement this stuff, right? Very fast. And then it
Yeah.
finished the first session. I think I did cut off after the spec, but I did keep the same session because I'm using 1 million tokens, and I was only at like 15%. So that's like 150,000. And if I hit 20%, that's 200,000 tokens. Then I'm already at like over 50% of my 400K. Even though I'm on 1 million tokens, when I hit 20%, I usually clear it, because even if you have 1 million, if you go over 20%,
Mm.
it starts to
And
degrade.
are you using Sonnet or Opus?
Opus, I'm on Max, right? So I'm on Opus 4.6 with 1 million token context window.
Yeah, I got FOMO because it's like in Copilot, like Opus is 3x, so I don't click Opus, and hence I'm not getting the good
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, so what happened then is it completed the task very quickly, implemented the CLI. I asked it to use the CLI, and it did great. Like I gave it the original curl scenarios, and it says run these scenarios with the CLI, and it did everything, and it worked wonderfully. And then I asked any divergence from plan. Oh yeah, the plan said I should put everything under package Golang directory, but I put it all under internal, which means it's an internal module. You can't use it from other Golang library as a library,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
I say, okay, not a big deal, but why did you divert from plan, right? It's, somewhere it said something like it didn't put it where I expected it. I guess the agent decided this was an internal utility, and therefore it shouldn't be an external contract. Therefore, it needs to go in internal. This is a diversion from plan. It pisses me off, right? Because I give you a very clear plan, and for some reason you do it differently. Then the second thing is, all right, now run the end to end, run the end to end, right? With clearly told you to build end to end. Oh yeah, no, end to end were marked as out of scope. What are you talking about? It wasn't out of scope.
So this seems to be a theme. We've talked about this before, where the AI doesn't quite do what you want it to do.
Yeah,
So
but
are you
it's
getting? Do you think you're getting any better at controlling the AI from going off piste?
built. I haven't built the Gherkin integration yet, right? What we talked about, BDD.
Do you think Gherkin will pull it straight?
Hopefully, because it should write them first, right? It should write all the BDDs first, and then it
Yeah,
shouldn't stop until the
that
BDD
makes
pass.
sense. Like you have your spec, and then you have your test BDD,
Yeah.
and then that should be the guardrails going forward.
Yeah. So that's the thing that pisses me off, and that makes me reluctant to let an agent's team run all like loose.
I see. I see. What your point is that you don't want to make it run overnight because you think it's just going to go wrong anyway.
Yeah. Um, but to come back to like Cloud has made a lot of releases that make it much easier to leave your machine and then, check in and then kick it back off.
Yeah.
I haven't really activated them yet, but like you can slash remote and then it makes your laptop accessible through the app, so you can be on your phone and then you can check if what's the status and
Yeah,
you can
those
keep it
features
running.
sound great. I mean, unfortunately, my employer gives me Anthropic via like an API key, so all those like quality of life features like voice, mobile, all those features are actually not enabled in my Claude code.
Yeah.
Do you use voice yourself?
Yeah, I did it on the demo, right, with my friend, and I like it, but I rarely use it because to me, while I type, I formulate my thoughts, and when I speak, I will misspeak, and then I have to go back and delete part of the
Oh, it's
text
not
anyway.
clever because like I think some of them are kind of clever enough to like,
I
you
think
know,
it's a very fine line,
restart or
right?
something. Or,
It's a fine line between being like clever and like shortcutting and clearly seeing where the user what said something and they meant something. Because sometimes it misunderstands me because of my beautiful accent, and then it comes up with this weird word, and then it tries to make sense of it, and then it would delete half my sentence. Not Cloud Code, but I've seen that happen in some other tools, and I was like, okay,
yeah,
just
dictation is
transcribe.
always one of those things that never quite works very well. I mean, like I was just thinking yesterday, like my as try as I may to like optimize my workflow. Like when I write my to-do list on a piece of paper in the morning, that just seems to work the best for me. Like I want to dictate some ideas, but then they sort of get lost in voice recorder, or they never uh, it never comes back out.
So did I answer your question about
Yeah,
like
I
agent
guess you
teams?
did, but like
Name.
ne- I need to figure this out myself. Obviously,
Can you hit your table? Hit your table.
I you see, I
Wow.
got it on like a stand now, so I listened
When
to the feedback. Thank you, whoever gave me feedback.
Well, it bothered you, and honestly, I also noticed your camera shaking last time. And
Yeah, so I
yeah,
fixed that.
it's pretty
And
cool.
are you going to fix your headset? Are you going to get a Rode headset or something?
Like a proper. What do you mean? Like a proper microphone instead?
Yeah, like the Rode stuff is pretty good from
Uh,
Australia.
Australia? No,
God, the
I
weather's
don't
so
think
bad
I
here.
will.
How's the weather in Vietnam? Just
You're the third person who asked me this.
tell me it's beautiful.
It's beautiful.
Thanks for sharing those Reddit links about the Trivy thing. I always thought to myself that one day someone's going to do a sneaky attack with the Git orphan commits, because I've noticed that myself sometimes, that when I'm messing around the branches and I delete a branch, if you know the commit hash, you can pull stuff out from the nether.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Like even very early on in my career, when I pushed my credentials to GitHub, like everyone does.
Not me. I'm not a fool.
Oh yeah. Well, not yet then. So then you learn very early on that to remove credentials from a Git commit is not sufficient to just like go and rewrite, rebase, and
Actually, I've never done it.
interactively.
So what do you have to do? Just delete the repo and start again, or what did you do?
You have to rotate your credentials. They are
Oh, okay.
leaked. Even if you go and rebase interactively and rewrite history and push that, GitHub doesn't garbage collect those commits. So there are bots that
Look
are
for them.
watching for events, and they will find
Yeah.
those commits and then they
So
will
I think
read the data.
GitHub does check for credential stuff nowadays, I do believe.
Yeah, and a lot of even definitely if you push a personal access token, right, it will immediately go send you a notification like we revoked your
Yeah.
path because you pushed it. God
Yeah.
damn it!
That's what I want. I want you to show the bat. Oh, I'm
Yeah,
trying to actually work. Have you ever worked with GitHub apps? That's the thing I'm supposed to do at work, but it's quite confusing. And I'm just wondering
yeah. GitHub apps are my favorite
something weird about it.
way to interact with the GitHub because so there's I mean GitHub apps are the ideal way to manage automation because you can create them inside your organization as an app,
Yeah.
keep them internal, and then
Yeah.
you can install them into repositories. And there's no single like if you say you use the old way, which is create a machine user, which create an account into your org,
Well, basically a pat. What do you mean,
and
like a
then
machine?
you could give your personal pad, but usually you don't do that, right? So you create a
Yeah. I
dedicated
mean, people create an
automation
account
user.
for it, but yeah,
Yeah, but
it's
then you
still
have to pay
something
a
to
license
manage.
seat for it. So you have to pay for that as a license seat.
Yeah.
And then you have to like find the way to share access to that account. You have to log in to access the path and control like if you even use discrete what's it called? Granular.
Yeah. And you have to make a long lived pat,
It's
which is a
very,
very good
very
idea.
annoying. And then if you use GitHub apps, you basically can dedicate app administrators within the organization, and they can then modify and request permissions, and then they can be reviewed and applied,
Yeah,
which is way more better than a pat.
it is better, but like for some reason, I think maybe it's just there's some disconnect between the powers that be who administer this GitHub Enterprise that there's some weird permission problem, and I can't roll the specific
Yeah, I wouldn't want
feature
to
out.
be like the first time I worked with GitHub like apps, sorry, not personal access tokens, but actual proper apps. I had full admin, so I could see everything.
Okay, you
And I
can work it
wouldn't
out.
want or wish upon anyone to try and roll out GitHub apps without having visibility and like what that
Yeah, yeah.
entails.
I hate that sort of like dark pattern when you log in and you think you can see
You can't
everything.
tell anyone to say, go and do this. I need this permission if you can't see what is it that's
Exactly.
missing,
Exactly.
right?
It really this is the thing I'm hitting my head on
Yeah,
lately.
so I would recommend create your own GitHub app in your own account and play around with that to understand how it works. I think the
Yeah.
most important thing to understand is that a GitHub app has an identity and it needs to use that identity against an installation to get a token for then doing activity within a repository. So the app identity itself does not give it any permission. It's the identity plus the installation identity. So the app identity plus the installation identity together that you need to use to get access to a repository.
Yeah.
That's the only way. Like you need to get a short-lived token from your installation, and that's basically the hardest thing to understand because you got an app ID, you got a secret key, and then you have an installation ID, and then you need to get a short-lived token to be able to
Yeah.
do things. And it's like,
That makes sense.
ah!
Speaking of this sort of authentication, so another thing I'm working on is like we have an estate with like 50 plus accounts, and previously I've always been quite happy with AWS SSO, but I think there's been some advancements. I don't know. Have you ever had I don't know what the new AWS switching user experience is like. I mean, do you ever use multiple sessions and switch
Yeah,
accounts?
I've found something that works really well for me, and I have not been following what are the new ways to do things. I used AWS Vault, which is from Designs, but
Oh,
they no longer maintaining it, and it was moved over to another maintainer, which probably is scary about supply
you
chain
haven't
attacks.
used Assume or something like that?
Which one? Assume? No. I've heard about other. There was one famous one that even the AWS people were using, and it was something. It was the idea of like you basically have your credential management as a platform, and then you just allocate it to users, and then the users could just very quickly switch roles. It was a service, but then they became full paid. It was used to be free. It's something like Jump or something. I totally forgot
Yeah,
what it
yeah,
was.
that sounds familiar. That
But I
sounds
never
familiar.
used that. I used AWS Vault, and I've been so happy with it because it can even run as a daemon. Like if you want to do a Terraform apply, it can refresh tokens in the background.
Mm.
It can do a lot of things.
I guess when I have a bit of PTSD when it comes to Vault. You
It's
know,
not HashiCorp Vault,
it's not
sorry.
HashiCorp Vault. I just want to
No,
make
no,
that clear for
AWS
anyone
Vault
listening.
is a Golang binary that uses your keychain. On macOS, Darwin, it uses your keychain, but if you're on Ubuntu, you have to have a secure backend, and the most common or default one on Ubuntu is PASS, PASS. So that takes a bit of time to set up. So I just have onboarded someone a while ago, and he was on Windows, and I told him set up WSL and then set up Ubuntu VM and then use PASS. And there's actually a couple of steps to like set up GPG and all that to encrypt your
Mm.
secrets backend. If you're on macOS, it's all keychain and no problem. You can fingerprint authenticate it. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've used it like that before. I was just thinking more AWS native solutions. And then speaking of AWS native solutions, I've always found like when you have a bazillion AWS accounts, like grabbing CloudWatch logs from all those accounts and putting them in a one central place. That's usually there is some sort of like AWS pattern for it, but it's just a nightmare if I remember correctly. Like you have to set up Kinesis. I can't remember what you have to do exactly. And then most
Kinesis
people
for?
just end up setting up Datadog or something and then paying through the nose for Datadog. I was just curious if you have a go-to way of collecting logs from multiple accounts.
Oh, huh. You know what happens when you set up Control Tower on AWS organization? It sets up this really advanced log like audit account, and it sets up forward like rules automatically.
Right.
Like the moment you activate Control Tower, it creates like you have your maintenance account, it creates your audit account, it creates your Security Hub account,
Oh yeah, so it
and
like
then it's
sets up like a well-architected.
yeah, it immediately like deploys a bunch of CloudFormation
I
stacks all
forgot
over the
about
place.
that. I don't think I have access to that in my organization, so that's not cool, is it?
Yeah. and then it creates a centralized log account, and it sets up all the forwarding for it as well. I remember that I had to like figure out how that worked to kind of disable things because it was costing money, and like I don't. There was some things, but like I was impressed by the amount of configuration it did to basically fetch all of the logs and across all of the
Yeah,
organization accounts
it's
and get them all
non-trivial when you do it
centralized.
manually. I must say, I've done it in the past, and it was pain.
So when I onboard, like when I have Terraform onto an org, I usually have my Datadog integration module, it's a wrapper around the CloudFormation stacks that Datadog maintains, because they don't maintain Terraform modules, they give you a CloudFormation stack.
Oh
And
yeah,
so
I've
what I
seen that.
did is I parsed out the stack variables into Terraform variables, and I can invoke the module and control all of the services that are enabled on the accounts, like disable everything by default, explicit opt-in, because if you have a Datadog enabled on your
It would
AWS
just suck all the
account,
metrics and
it
probably by
starts to
default.
scrape everything, and then you get a huge AWS bill because Datadog constantly keeps
Yeah,
talking to those
and the
endpoints.
other thing that we ran into work is like the SLA or whatever for the metrics is actually really slow. I think they like it's about 15 minutes by default or something. So like
Oh, but
if something's
that's
happening in
if
production,
that's CloudWatch. That's like the default AWS.
yeah,
You
I
can
mean
you have to
it's
go like you have to go and say I want more aggressive, but then you have to acknowledge that it will cost money.
yeah.
So the
I guess
15-minute
yeah,
one is the
it's not
default
a
one, I
Datadog
think.
problem to be clear,
Yeah.
but ultimately when you set up Datadog on AWS, you see this problem often. Like, why didn't we see this problem earlier? Like, well, this is the default, I'm afraid. The 15-minute lag.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So basically, just to summarize, what a multi-account setup for AWS, you probably want to set up Control Tower to bootstrap it, and then
I mean, if you're happy to live with that control tower structure, it depends. So, I mean, it will set up your security hub account. It will set up like things
yeah,
for
all the
you
defaults.
so that everything gets aggregated, like your findings from all the accounts get aggregated in like a
Yeah,
centralized dashboard. That's really nice. I mean, I haven't done that for the last 3 or 4 years,
yeah, I haven't done it for a
so I don't
while.
know where they are at now, what they
I
are
mean,
doing now.
like many things in the cloud, there's that cloud sprawl, and then every organization that I work on, like it gets a bit crufty after a while, and I just wish we could have ephemeral accounts or ephemeral organizations where we just move everything to a new org. But like, I guess, well, also at the same time, I've worked in enough enterprises that everyone is absolutely allergic when you say something like migration. Everyone goes, no, we're not migrating anything.
This is a funny thing. When I had discussions about platform with some people, and they were like, okay, so next month we'll finally have everything nicely like migrated, right? And we'll have everything in order. And I'm like, most likely not, because there's like, or there's this discussion about like we want to go towards this, but we're in the middle of a migration. So if we're gonna do this, it's gonna like cause a migration on top of a migration. And there's this
Oh yeah.
tendency to be like, don't do that, we're gonna wait. And I'm like, it's always like that, like you're
Yeah.
never done, there's always
I can't help but
something.
think that I wonder if there's like a culture in an organization which says like that's insane enough to go like, hey, we're moving from AWS to Azure, like, and we're doing it over the weekend, and all our data, our 2 terabytes or whatever of data is going to be moved, and then every week or month they can almost do that again and again and again because
That's the
ultimately
DevOps
people
thing
get
also.
calcified in whatever hosting platform they're on, and they never
Isn't
can
that the
move.
DevOps mantra, like if something hurts, do it more?
I've never seen
Sounds
it
very
myself.
healthy.
I've never seen it myself, but like if you don't like just the practice of restoring a backup and
Backups.
testing a backup, like how many people restore a backup? It's so rare in reality, in my opinion, that people have the rigor to
You
just.
shouldn't say that out loud.
I know. Shouldn't say that. Hopefully, no one at work is watching.
No, like I mean, because the cloud gives you so much sense of security, because we're not doing the on-prem data backup tapes that we have to like constantly restore. We kind of trust AWS backup to work, but they have very clear like well architecture check marks is like how many times are you restoring your backups? How many times are you restoring a backup in a different region? How many times are
No,
you?
no.
That's all part of the checklist. If you want to do the well architected, they're very, very, very long checklists, and
I'm starting to think like a cool startup idea would be like validating that restore process,
there are quite a
restore
few.
okay.
Like when my friend was going towards becoming like an AWS partner with an organization, you have to pass all those checklists. And there was a company he found that did everything. So you just hook it up to your account. It goes and finds any violation, and then deploys a CloudFormation stack to rectify it. And then he said the moment you stop paying or deactivate the account connection, it rolls back all of the CloudFormation stacks. Like you can't use the platform to like become compliant and then disconnect it, because it kind of like rolls everything back and you lose all of the things. So he was like, God damn it. Like I spent so much time, because he was trying to reverse engineer the stacks and snapshot them so that he could redeploy them and things that I don't know. Just to do it quick. But like,
yeah, but
there's quite a few companies that
that's
do
a kind
that.
of a dark pattern. I mean,
maybe with AI today, it would be so fast to do
yeah,
this
like
kind of stuff.
exactly. Like you could give a role to this Restore OK company called Restore Test, and maybe a subset of the architecture and data somehow. Just
It's very, very
I think it's possible with AI nowadays.
because when you look at disaster recovery, there's so many different strategies that you can do depending on your RTO and your other like requirements. Every service has different ones. Like, do you want point-in-time recovery? Do you want constant live streaming? Do you want complete
Yeah,
failover? Do you want pilot light? Do you want to pay?
yeah,
How much do you want
it
to
gets
pay?
complicated.
Yeah, so AWS has these white papers because I had to do disaster recovery setup, and they
Yeah,
have a very detailed
RTO.
breakdown of like 4 strategies: pilot light, live,
Yeah.
active passive type of setups. And there's so many scenarios they're meant to protect with. And the white paper is basically, don't choose any strategy unless you have well defined your RTO, your RPO, whatever, and also what are your attack scenarios. You can't build a disaster recovery plan if you don't define what is the things that you're protecting against. Is it a hack? Is it an intrusion?
Yeah, you need to do some threat modeling. I
Yeah,
love this thing that I
that's
just
the
took a
one. That's the
screenshot of.
white paper.
Yeah. But like what I'm trying to say here is like restoring stuff, a lot of that is quite tedious, right? If AI can run through this exercise without people manually, because like no one wants to do a restore because it's boring as hell and tedious.
But it was
If
actually
we
a very fun exercise when we did it.
Yeah,
It was
like
really fun.
well, you enjoyed it, but like that's probably just a one-off thing. It's like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
doing this for the first time.
Yeah, but it's very
But like if
important because when we did it, we were like, we had a plan, and then when it happened, we simulated it in non-prod, but then we actually did it in live as well. It was like, yeah, it's very clear what my plan is. But then when you're actually doing it, there's this all additional stuff that we're like, yeah, but am I absolutely sure? Oh, wait a minute. I need to double check that. Oh, no, this process is actually very cumbersome. Like it was designed like this and I have to do this thing, but it wasn't clear to me how to validate it. So doing it live, even if you have completely automated backup restore procedures, actually validating the plan and the buttons you click is so valuable.
Yeah. Like if we could just, if in light of this AI era that we're living in right now, if we could just list all the tedious things that we couldn't really automate before, like backup restore testing, if we could just list that and basically prioritize them in a sense, because now these things are possible without dying of boredom, to basically get AI to validate your backup or to bootstrap your AWS account. I mean, let's be honest, like bootstrapping an AWS account or organization with Control Tower, did you say? I forgot the name of the
Yeah,
product already.
Control Tower from AWS
I
does
mean,
it.
can it even be driven by automation? Actually, these are the things that
So this is
I'm
where I'm
starting
not up to date
now.
because there's many ways to bootstrap your AWS account. I mean, if you put in place, or your organization, if you put in place Control Tower, you already have like a first step, but then you can also hook it up with way more things. Like Control Tower has landing zone. And originally when I tried
Well,
it out 5 years ago, it was horrible. It was because the account provisioning was took so long, so much time. And you couldn't even specify what's the VPC ID. Like, imagine that you have this requirement that every VPC ID, CIDR, sorry, not ID, but CIDR is separate because you need a transit gateway to connect everything or interconnect. You couldn't do that with Control Tower landing zone. You had to define the CIDR range of the VPC that was going to be provisioned in advance in the template. And you couldn't say like, when the account gets created, go here and allocate the CIDR range and then create the VPC with
there's
that CIDR
definitely,
range.
I can see there's some automation gaps. Like one thing that's always
That was
frustrated
5 years ago. I'm pretty sure they already fixed some
uh,
of that stuff.
I made a video about this, like just closing an AWS account.
They also fixed that a lot. Before it was not possible. There was no API, but they added APIs and everything, like
Yeah,
at least
now
4
they have
years
the
ago.
API, but still there's like a very like it's weird. Like the account is like
Yeah, the recommended
marked for
practice
deletion,
for
but it's still there
years.
for like at least a month or something.
Yeah, the recommended practice for years has been you keep a pool of accounts and you allocate the account and then you release the account once you're done with whatever project that needed the account. There's even a whole like
Release the account.
open
What does that mean?
source.
Not deleting it.
No. So you keep a pool and you have a basically you allocate the account to a project, provision it, and then when it's done, you basically nuke all of it and you release it back to the pool. So you never destroy it. The account never gets created or that's
But
been
that
there's an open source framework that does that for you. It's been around for like I don't know 8-10 years, and it's still one of the most popular ways. Like I talked to someone, he says like, oh, I've been working on like account pool mechanisms like just a month ago. And I said, oh, I remember there was this framework. He said, yeah, that's probably the one I'm using. And it's still the same one.
but why not just nuke it and create a new account in the org? I don't understand.
You just mentioned the account stays around so long. I mean, it's always been problematic to close the account. And
Okay, so
it's
this
been
is
an
kind of like
established pattern.
working.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. By the way, yeah, thanks for sharing that thing about State Graph. It does look I really impressed by State Graph's landing page. It's so clear what it's doing and how to use it, what you need to do to start how it advertises value and things like that. Like this is really good.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of demos, talking about what they're trying to achieve. I was surprised that because I thought the whole idea of state graphs was to go towards a Terralit so that you can resolve all of your dependencies within a single state. But they added multi-state support, and I was like, "Oh, it seems you changed your mind." And they said, "No, that was always the plan: the ability to have multiple state within the individual state and be able to plan everything without mocks. Because if you do that in TerraGrunt, you're gonna have to specify output mocks and things like that."
Have you given it well? I mean, you mentioned it because I mean, I'm guessing that they
Now
went.
it's released, right? It's there's
Well,
it's been released like last week.
okay. The blog doesn't seem to reflect that,
Yeah,
but
interesting.
whatever.
Because there was a release. I think they released it just before KubeCon. But like I don't know if they made it open source, right? They said that they couldn't figure out the licensing. And this is, by the way, some very interesting article I saw this morning about today. There's this website. It's a joke, I guess, and sure, it's for fun. But what it does is like, don't like the passkey license, just let AI do enough change so that you make it look like it's a different project, but and you can relicense it under your own license that you want. So they said this is like in the enterprise today, you don't want to get affected by AGPL, a Faro GPL that basically is very, and GPL in itself, like whatever it touches, you're supposed to then open source and so on. So enterprise are very much against it. So any project that's GPL or AGPL usually is a no in enterprise. And so you don't like the license? Great. Here's a workflow. Just fork it, make it your own license, and just run it how you want.
Well, like just get AI to re-implement everything, I suppose, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I can share the
Yeah.
link. It's a very funny one because I was having this discussion with someone. Basically, honestly, there was this project, and I can read the source code because it's MPL, Mozilla Public License, but I can ask an AI to rewrite it in a different language. And where do I need to keep the license? How do I need to keep the attribution if I'm basically rewriting it in a different language? Like, I guess
Yeah, I've
the
seen
AI is
people
reading
talk
all the
about it.
algorithms.
I mean, that's assuming big things like, because I mean, we've been chatting about it. I mean, this is what your Spec Ledger project is about in a way. It's like, I don't think people have figured out how to ship with AI, really, have they? So like,
But you think that the
all of this,
idea of pointing an AI agent to an existing project and asking it to rewrite is not
I mean,
like
it's possible. It's bold talk. I mean, but it's talk.
you want me to
Like,
share it with you?
I don't think anyone's really done that yet. I mean, it's just hypothetical at this point, right?
At the risk of causing a shitstorm, you just showed state graph, right?
Oh
So let me
God,
just share my
I'm
screen.
proven wrong. Like that was
And
10
that's not
minutes
even
ago.
open source. So maybe it's hold on entire screen. It's gonna you can see it, right? You can see state graph, right?
Yeah. I was showing that
So you
earlier.
see this the landing page
Yo.
with like sequential orchestrations versus multi-state and see the difference. It's all
I
SQ.
just love that landing page. It's so good.
Now look at this. Well, he changed it. Maybe somebody complained.
Okay.
Well, first, what I think is funny, I didn't even realize you need to those squares with the little dots inside. Well, there's a dot pattern. I thought this was very funny. Oh, this one is
Yeah,
very
but like
similar.
copying
He changed it a little bit. Before it was
a
way more.
landing page is one thing. Copying an actual
Oh no,
product
this
is
thing
another.
works. This thing works.
It works.
Like yeah, I actually integrated like the CDKTF, and you see spec ledgers in there as well. So I actually did the CDKTF test generator, and then I run all of these sample.
So what's your relationship with this project? You just know the guy or something?
Because okay, so this is basically doing the same thing as StateGraph, but it's in Rust and it's open source, and it's just like
What?
The idea is very interesting because he just re-implements the config parser, reading the original Terraform configuration, and then generates and then invokes the Terraform providers directly. So he implements the RPC protocol that Terraform talks with the plugins, right? So you have the Golang Terraform talking to the protocols, and it just invokes the Golang execution core of Terraform, instantiates the providers and communicates to them with the protocol. So this thing does the same thing. It instantiates the the providers, and then it communicates them through gRPC. So every CRUD action that you need to do for every resource configuration just initializes, it just calls out straight to the provider.
Okay, but there's also like a database aspect to it.
Yeah, so this thing is like StateGraph. It basically uses Postgres as or SQLite as a state storage. So it doesn't support it doesn't do the remote backend setup that you can do with S3 or other things.
Is this plagiarism? I'm not too sure how to.
Yeah, this goes back to the original question. Like, this is not even looking at the source code. This is just looking at the landing page and duplicating the capabilities. And when I talk with him, he says the main reason is because they didn't have a plan to open source it, and I really like the idea, and I didn't think it was that hard to build. And if you can tell, it's all AI. And you said like, oh, that's all like bold talk about AI rebuilding products. It's a fact. Okay, you can rebuild a complete product.
Have you tried this in anger? Is this gonna work?
I did work it. There was one thing that I discovered, and I'm not sure if they fixed it.
Have you actually compared it with StateGraph?
Oh no, okay. I mean, honestly, StateGraph's been worked on in private in how you call it, stealth mode since September. Okay, so a team's been working on that for almost half a year or 8 months. I cannot tell that this project, which is maybe 1 month old, or like a month and a half old, is anything comparable in terms of like stability and features. But the fact is that it works. I was able to clone it. I was able to use it with Terraform JSON, and I was able to Oxid apply my Terraform configs, and it was creating against the Terraform provider AWS.
Yeah,
it was doing all the things.
This is the difference between a commercial product and something that you can just clone out and give a whirl.
Yeah, so you are right in a way that is a pattern that people often say. I think there was a post about it recently, which is people think that they can just rip it and then move away from the well-established and tested library, and they replace it in 30 minutes, and then they spend months fixing bugs and basically
supporting it.
Yeah, so this is the thing I wanted to, because you diverted me. You said it's a bold claim, but it holds no reality. But this is the website, which is, I think, a bit of a joke. And honestly, I think they use the
I think it was on Hacker News. I think I read it.
Yeah, it's funny how they like put a shit smear on it.
It is slightly. I mean,
it's hyperbolic.
I actually want StraightGraph to succeed, but like when I look at the pricing, when I think about the enterprises that I work with, it's really hard for them to adopt a proprietary product. And how do you pronounce this other project? Oxid or something?
Yeah, Oxid. I should put the StateGraph on here. Like pricing.
Like Oxid is actually, even though it came later and re-implemented StateGraph or something like that, it actually stands a lot better chance of being adopted because people, the engineers on the ground can just clone it out and try it out. It's like,
so the person that built Oxid, he told me that he has a couple of like fintech clients that are looking to roll this out across their organization because they have such a big Terraform state, and Terraform is extremely slow, and they are seeing like a 10x or 20x improvement
Yeah, I mean,
on the
I've hit this
execution.
problem so many times, and this the trouble is that none of my projects in GitHub, I don't think will give this a proper whirl. Like like no one has a private project that replicates, um, an enterprise
He got rid of the YAML
infrastructure
files,
set up,
by
do
the
they?
way.
Unless I have my home lab somehow expand dramatically.
So one of the things that was missing was the context exposed to the parser, the language parser was missing these internal path modules for this type of stuff. So I identified there were several. Like in the context, it's missing the path module, the path root, the path current working directory, and the workspace name. So those were a couple of
Oh, I hate
things.
those sort of like, what do you
And this
call
also
them?
was not implemented. But again, I opened
All
this
these
issue
path.
February 18, so maybe you've already implemented, because I don't think anyone can use this if you don't have these functions, right? You need these functions like file, template file, their name. Like these were all missing on the initial version. So I'm not sure if you actually fixed that. I haven't really looked at the latest commits. Yeah.
Yeah, in Tacos Guru, you're gonna have. You mentioned you're gonna put statecraft there. You're gonna put oxide there too.
Yeah. Oh, another thing. He has a platform called Ops0 AI, which is like an agent driven like for Terraform. So he said that he already has Oxid as a backend, like an execution engine integrated there. So yeah, this is a new website again.
Oh my god.
So when I showed him Tacos, he said, "Why don't you put Op0 on there, because Op0 is also providing that." So I think both Op0 and Terra Team, State Graph should go on there and show
Definitely.
like the cost,
I
because
mean,
like here it says 10,000 resources at 12K. No idea about like is there any, because the licensing is usually on either the team size, right? If you reduce it, you can see OpenTaco is by user. So if you have a large team, OpenTaco quickly becomes way expensive. Most expensive if you go over 50 users. And then you have the like number of resources. So in my organization, we're around 25K. If we look at state graph pricing, they say 10K. So I'm already at like 12, which is what, $1,000 a year.
I'm just looking.
$1,000 a month is not that bad if you look
I'm
at it.
just looking at your Tacos Guru repo here. Like you must. I mean, you said it was AI generated. I mean, what you have the evaluation criteria.
Yeah, it was fully vibe coded, zero spec ledger even. Why is
But
that
can I
not
take over
opening?
the presentation here?
Yeah.
So I think I'm a little bit confused here. So you basically rate the fact that it has no Kubernetes requirement as higher. I thought
Yeah,
that
you
was
know why,
interesting.
right?
No, why?
Why would you need a Kubernetes cluster to run your tacos?
Yeah. But it's confusing in the sense that you might use Terraform to bootstrap Kubernetes. I know it's
Yeah, I
silly,
know.
but like someone might look at this and say, huh?
Yeah. No. The way that it's formulated, it's a bit weird. But the idea is no Kates means it basically disqualifies. I think TerraCube, which is an open source that you can run on, but you need Kubernetes, right? You can't run it without
I
Kubernetes.
mean, this is quite opinionated. Like actually,
It's
on the
not.
topic of
Why would you need?
yeah, I get you, but it's
No,
a
that's
little
why the
bit. It's
weights
a
are
little bit.
open, right? No.
What?
But look. If you don't agree with this weight, you just reduce the weight.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why the weights are all configurable.
Really? That's clever.
You go to Tacos Guru. If you don't agree with the weight of this particular item, it's opening. You're only setting it
Oh, sorry, share this
a
tab.
window. Yeah,
That's really clever.
and it affects the order, right? If you say
But
like, for example,
the order doesn't seem to change here in the top
change
7.
OpenTofu weight to 0. Let's say that you don't care about it being Terraform or OpenTofu.
Oh.
Immediately you see
Oh.
HCP Terraform go up. Then change CDKTF to 0. Again, HCP Terraform goes up. It went up three spots. Terra Team went down 1. Yeah,
You need to put this as arguments though on the URL.
I think if you go on mobile, it tells you a little bit more. And even
That's
also
really
on the
clever. I really like that idea. Did you come up with this idea yourself, or you copied another site?
I think I need to credit all my ideas to my principal architect no, like basically what happened is I needed to evaluate platforms to migrate to, and I had to establish criteria that matter to me. So based on
Mm.
my story, I told Opus like, okay, this is how we've started, this is how we evolved, this is what we have established, this is what matters to us. CDKTF we use heavily, so it's important, and it came up with a bunch of criteria for me. Right, and then it came up with the formula to calculate the score
Mm.
of each platform using weights. I think I might have suggested to use weights, right? And then I presented a markdown document with the weight calculate, like the weights to each criteria. And somebody said it would be nice. I said to them, do you agree with these weights? And they said it would be nice if we could change the weights and see how it impacts the
Ah,
core.
nice, nice, nice.
And so I went back to Opus. I said like, hey, we want to make this, an
Yeah,
Excel
I mean,
spreadsheet is gonna suck. So I'm gonna like, you might as well build a website. And then came up with
exactly,
all of this.
exactly. Well, I love what you've done here. It's really good. The we I remember that, like, we played these agile games back in the day when you were in the office. Play,
Points,
where you would
poker,
sort of have
planning poker.
sliders in a sense. You'd
Oh,
ask your
okay.
client, "How important is this to you? How important is
Oh,
that to you?"
you should see what Opus did with ThoughtWorks Tech Radar, by the way. I gave
Uh-oh.
it the original Tech Radar open source repo, and I told it I have analyzed my internally technology, right? I gave it access to look at the GitHub. I haven't posted it, uh, but I kept it internally. So, and then I said, yeah, but it's very nice to see the Tech Radar and why the dot is there, and we can click on it and we can see a little bit of a discussion why this particular technology is here because we haven't implemented across most of our
Why is this in
repositories.
Spanish?
Because
Sorry.
you're on a VPN. I don't know.
Okay, that's a problem.
You're planning your holiday to Spain.
It's definitely an Okay, that's a bug.
That's interesting. So basically, I gave Opus the GitHub repository, and then I was like making it to give a breakdown. So whatever tech radar item, there's several criteria for this item to be there, like in that band, and I wanted to show that technology being used in these projects and these repositories. So it created another page. When you click on any dot, it will then show like the number of repos this technology is active in.
Cool, 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 cool.
Opus again just expanded on this with the ability to give like a slice and dice kind of experience of
Yeah,
finding
I
out
like what you've
why
done
it's
there. I
there.
should probably use AI for more visualizations like that
And
with
it's
my
hard to do it
stakeholders.
like you can try to create a slides or you can try to create an Excel spreadsheet or you can try to ask it with a XCali draw to draw some diagrams. But the real power, even the one that you shared earlier, when you look at like, and we only did the top row of like common agent, like bad practices. When you hover, every single one of them gives like a little interactivity. Like this type of stuff is so much easier to build with
Mm,
AI. Yeah.
yeah, I need to build something like this. Yeah, I mean, I feel like when I interact with my OpenClaw, half the time I'm just asking like, shall I buy this product, or is this product better? And half the time when I talk with AI, I'm trying to evaluate some options. So it would be great to have AI just flesh it out a bit.
This was also not my original idea because the Brickman, Evgeny Brickman from Gruntworks, he posted a blog on LinkedIn saying that he was evaluating, I don't know what it was, different backup storage arrays for his home system, and he was evaluating them against pricing and features and whatever.
Mhm.
I'm just making up what exactly it was, but it was something like that. It was something like backup solutions. And he had said, I used AI to create a little like comparison chart and the ability to modify like my criteria. And before I started on tacos.guru, I did go back and search for his blog post, which was on his personal blog, and then look again exactly what it was. But I didn't remember it exactly right because it was a little bit more limited than what I wanted. So I did then just take the idea and build tacos.guru. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh, quick side note. If you had the requirement from a client to build out Kubernetes, would you use Terraform or to
Yeah, I think so.
bootstrap it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't go CDK. I mean, CDK is better fit for AWS constructs, right? Or AWS
Well,
services.
I have to say there's the EKS Blueprints repository, which uses AWS CDK, but it was built before the Kubernetes CDK. So there's a CDK for Kubernetes, and it automatically creates like the L1 bindings and then creates L2s, and it's really nice. What that means is that somebody in the EKS Blueprint repository kind of wrote some TypeScript interface to represent a Kubernetes manifest, like what are the mandatory fields that you need to do, which is very rudimentary. And that's how they bootstrap EKS clusters, with like very rudimentary representation of what Kubernetes objects are like, compared to CDKs, which automatically builds a TypeScript representation of every OpenAPI schema in Kubernetes.
Okay, so this
this is
CDK, that's
fully
EKS, but you would still use Terraform, right? Or you wouldn't
yeah.
even use
So
it.
I really like CDK for Kubernetes to manage my Kubernetes deployments, but like not many unless you're in the CDK ecosystem, it's probably not worth it, right?
Oh, okay. So you use this to manage your deployments, but not
Not the
bootstrap it.
actual bootstrap. So what I did 3 years ago was I implemented clusters using some of the EKS blueprint patterns, which is like they have like builder pattern and other patterns to build with AWS CDK. But I didn't feel it was such a great experience. It was not that good. Terraform modules are very well established. Like the Terraform module for EKS is well established. I do not like it. It's way complicated, but it's way more widespread. I mean,
Okay,
people like
if you were deploying Kubernetes on AWS, you would use this Terraform thing.
I mean, I wouldn't, right? I mean, I would land in a team that does it, and I would tell them.
I think I used this in the past, and I thought it was really heavyweight, but
It is very heavyweight. And it's impossible to support because AKS team keeps adding features. Like now they have completely managed add-ons.
yeah, I'm
They moved
surprised that
from.
you didn't gravitate to using CDK for this.
I mean,
It's just it's just an experience.
my goal with Sarah Constructs was to port the EKS blueprints for AWS CDK to Terraform CDK to get rid of the stupid module. So my goal was to build, and I have already got EC2 instance profile. I've got load balancers, everything. The only thing I don't have, I have autoscaling group also, but I don't have. No, I think I don't have autoscaling group, and I need autoscaling group to do self-hosted configurations. The thing is, the AWS CDK L2s for EKS depend on every single EC2, every single load balance. Like it depends on so many other modules that to get to that point, I have to port everything else. But I told you that
you're better off with CDK, surely, if all these AWS
I think so.
contracts in place.
I think so because honestly, it's way more intuitive, and it's where the EKS product team is probably contributing. Like they're adding the features into CloudFormation, and then they're adding the feature into AWS CDK, and then somebody from the community needs to add it into Terraform AWS EKS, which becomes more and more bloated and is an absolute nightmare. But for some reason, still has 5K stars.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this guy's done a few things. I'm trying to remember all the things he's done.
He wrote
he's done the
pre-commit
Lambda one,
hooks,
which is a great
which is
example why you
horrible.
should use CDK.
Exactly.
Right.
And the thing is, when he was doing YouTube streams on working on this Lambda module, I showed him CDK for Terraform. I showed him Terra constructs. I showed him complete bundling solution with complete IAM permissions preset, and he said he really liked it, but he wouldn't spend any time on it.
Well, I think he's made a name for himself for Terraform.
Yeah, he also shared Terra constructs.
Serverless TF.
He has a newsletter.
Yeah.
No, he was building serverless TF, and I was like, why would you do that? And then he built compliance TF, which I think makes sense. He's built it for a year. He went to like 12 or I don't know how many conference talks. It's to you can select what SOC compliance you want, and then it's gonna bootstrap the modules, his Terraform modules, and then it's gonna apply the compliance rules, and it's gonna make sure that they are compliant to your compliance requirements.
This actually sounds useful for at least one thing I used to work on.
Yeah. So for me personally, I feel this is a waste of time, and you should use aspects, and you should use CDK.
Aspects. Okay. Oh yeah. Oh,
and
actually, that's one thing I need to work on today. I need to prove that some level 2, level 3 constructs were deployed in certain stacks.
Oh yeah, you asked me last time.
Yeah, I think we talked about it, but so if I can produce a bill of materials to say that this construct is here, that's what I need to do. I mean, compliance half the time it is about giving a nice list of a bill of materials, as I like to call it. I mean, maybe I am what do you call it, trivializing everything here, but yeah, a bill of materials I feel is the critical concept. Okay, cool, man.
We didn't talk about a trivia hack.
We did. I mean,
You mentioned about the fork. No, you just quickly short mentioned that you could access fork.
I mean,
commits.
that's how it unleashed itself. I mean, to
Oh
me,
man, it's
that's all I
insane.
need to know. Sorry, I can't really share our WhatsApp, can we? Do you have a link to the? Yeah, maybe we can at least put a link to it.
Yeah, so the most interesting, I should put a link there. But the most interesting breakdown. I mean, first it was three events, right? The first one at the beginning of March, where the claw bot, like the hacker bot, the bot that was like a claw bot that was configured to find vulnerabilities, basically proved a problem with the way that the Trivy GitHub workflows were set up. I mean, it got some compromise into the Trivy setup, right? That was the first event. They had to like erase. Maybe the Clawbot hitting 5 or 6 different targets was to hide the actual Trivy foothold, because I think at that point they got a foothold, they got some credentials, and they got access to Trivy, right? And Trivy had nuked the repository and had to re-enable it. Like Trivy was gone. The GitHub action was gone for a few days, and people were like, "Oh, my Trivy things were failing. Oh, it's because the repo was nuked and things like that," right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then the second thing that happened is people started to realize the binary had compromised, and it started stealing secrets. So anyone who had run the Trivy action had exfiltrated their secrets. Like it had several paths to
That's pretty
identify.
serious.
Yeah, but the people don't understand the impact, because the Trivy binary and the Trivy GitHub action and that scanner live in the Datadog agent, live in the Go Teleport privileged access management repository. It is so widespread across the community that all of these repositories should step forward and highlight how they were affected by the hack, if at all.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to mention names, but I know some big enterprises use Trivy, and I just don't know. I don't want to think about what the hell's happened there.
Yeah, so
luckily, I did search around GitHub to see if anyone in my org was using it, and no one was using it. But we don't use containers very much, thank God.
Trivy doesn't scan only containers. It was a replacement to Terraform Scanner. After Terraform Scan was acquired by,
really?
I don't know, was it Snyk?
Yeah, well, I just did a GitHub search for Trivy, and we don't use it. So
okay, so it's used for IAC scanning. It's used for virtual machine scanning, like AMIs. You can run on your Linux machine for file system. It downloads.
I'm guessing you use it.
I have always wanted to deploy it, but I've used it.
Everyone's being quiet now. Like, no, we don't use Trivy.
No, I wanted to deploy it, and I have it on some Jira tickets where like we should use Trivy for this, because we pay for Snyk and CrowdStrike and all this stuff, and then I'm like, why? You know, we can get Trivy. Trivy is good.
But like, okay, let's run through this a little bit. So, okay, say there's a GitHub action and it steals secrets inside the GitHub action flow where the Trivy scan is happening. I mean, usually A, they're short-lived, and B, like, what would you even do with these secrets? Because a lot of the secrets, like, can you think of something that it's looking for, like an Anthropic API key? Or
you just mentioned that you still use PATs.
Yeah, but aren't PATs? Oh yeah, on a GitHub. In GitHub, PATs are pretty long-lived usually, aren't they?
And then the second thing that
actually connects very well what we were saying earlier with GitHub, because
apps.
PATs is like a hole in the system, isn't it?
Yeah, but also I don't think using GitHub apps, like the way that I see GitHub apps being used mostly, is you use the app ID and its secret key to get an installation short-lived token. That means, but that's probably in a separate job, you actually do run a short step where you get the
sorry, I think I need to. So my kid is calling me. I have to take you to school. I think mommy says you were taking to school.
Deflection.
I think my wife told me
deflection.
Okay, I think let's end it there. Sorry, I got to take my kids to school. Just finish your point, and then I'll close the call.
I wonder how effective.
Oh, I think I know what you're saying. The pat becomes a GitHub token. Is the pat
N-
still exposed? I think you're trying to say, right?
No, the GitHub app requires a long-lived secret also. So I don't know how you you need the GitHub app key to get a token. So you need to have a key exposed somewhere into a workflow that gets a temporary token, and then you can use that token to do things. So you need to really segregate those two, right?
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so it's still dangerous. It's still still easy to shoot yourself in the foot. If in the same runner you are getting the key, getting a token, then if that key is still in that same runner, something could exfiltrate it. You should really have like a separate job, a completely different runner to get a temporary token for the GitHub app, and then feed that into your job that needs to do the activity. I
And to be
think there
clear,
might be.
I mean, the risk is here is that someone can get into your GitHub account and go crazy. I suppose, given
And can use the GitHub app permissions to do whatever the
yeah.
GitHub
I
app
mean,
has access to.
most big organizations have approvals and things like that.
GitHub apps usually, yeah, they are very fine-grained tokens, and every single permission that the GitHub app has is way visible. Like it's not like a user that creates a
Yeah,
path and
assuming you're using
determines.
GitHub Apps, which is really hard to set up for some reason.
You should be
Okay,
using GitHub apps. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more
we all
secure.
should be using GitHub Tags.
And apparently, you shouldn't
Whoever's
be
using
pinning your commits to your GitHub actions, because that was a long time established pattern, and that's how it got in as well. People are now like, yeah, you can't use a SHA because the SHA can be pulled from a fork, and then you can compromise the repo.
Yeah.
That's the second problem. Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, great speaking with you, Vincent.
Yep.
We'll catch up another time. See you.
Yeah. See you. Bye.